Bloodborne bosses. Some of them are worthy for an Oscar nominee for outstanding performance. Others? Not worth dropping pennies when I walk by them on the sidewalk. Not every boss is created equally, just like YouTubers when it comes to the algorithm. Just like every other YouTuber that has played one of these games, I will be going through and ranking every single one of them by how much I like them. I'll try to end every boss off with a positive note, even though my unbridled rage cannot always be contained. I will say, though, that somehow, during my recording, the images on screen may appear grainy. And I will be honest, I don't really want to go back and play through the game just to re-record everything. So, I did my best. Anyways, on to the ranking.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 3 of them.
The Shadows of Yharnam. Not a boss I always hated. Every time I would go up to them in my previous playthroughs, I would always think, this sure is a boss I'm about to fight at the very end of probably the worst area in the entirety of the base game. And then, this one playthrough made me despise them. I realized how much I hated the mechanics of this fight. Now, I'm not gonna say something like, the developers didn't try when they were making this boss, and it's the only one that's designed horribly. I don't think any of these bosses, even the ones on the lower end of this tier, are going to be horrible or designed bad. I just think some of them are, less fun. And this is probably the least fun boss in the entire game. The problem is that I feel like there's only one real strategy to fighting these guys. You're supposed to go after the melee ones and then save the other guy for last, the one with that shoots the fireballs. But like if you're aiming at one of the melee guys, the other one's gonna beat your ass, and it's okay. FromSoft has always had this issue with gank fights, and I think this is probably one of the most egregious examples of it. The arena for this boss fight definitely doesn't help it at all. That giant grave in the middle of the arena that just creates some wall, or the smaller graves that are scattered throughout like the left side, or even on the outskirts of the arena, that you can get caught on if you're trying to create some distance between you and the boss. It's just not fun. The fight itself is not something I enjoy. Even the music in the boss fight isn't even that memorable. And of course, the movesets by themselves aren't anything to glance at for more than a second either. They usually just stick between the same handful of moves. But whenever you get into phase 2 and they start doing the long lance attack where their swords fucking Mr. Fantastic at you, it gets really, really annoying. And I feel like they just don't let you breathe as much as you should be, considering that this boss and many others on the lower side of this tier list are really just mini-bosses. And of course, another issue that this boss and a few other bosses struggle from is that they're hardly even a boss. They're enemies that you can fight outside of the arena, albeit much later on with these guys specifically. It still comes across as lazy, even if their final phase for this fight, you get them with their like snake heads and like all the giant snakes coming out of the ground and whatever, which, I'll just say it, Messmer did it better. These guys just don't do it for me. And I don't think they really do it for very many other people either. The one and only thing that I could possibly think of for giving a positive point to this boss is that they look like the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, and the only difference between the Nazgul and the Shadows of Yharnam is that I actually like the Nazgul.
Want to see something really cool?
The Witches of Hemwick struggle with a lot of issues that the Shadows of Yharnam also do, like being an enemy that you can find outside of their arena. However, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in that you can't really find them outside of their arena unless you get snatched by one of the kidnapper enemies and thrown into Yahar'gul or the Unseen Village or whatever it is. And only then can you actually see them. Now, when it comes to them feeling like a mini-boss, yes, it still does fit that category. There's no overarching boss that comes directly after them. These guys are completely optional, just like the curse-rotted Greatwood from Dark Souls 3. Although, I actually kind of like the curse-rotted Greatwood, which I've heard is a somewhat of a hot take, apparently. But, regardless, their invisibility that they have throughout the entirety of the fight gets really repetitively annoying, especially since you can't really stun them in place. Well, unless maybe you can, but none of the builds I've ever had has been able to do that. Regardless, even after you kill the first one and you think, okay, great, now this annoying fight is finally over, the second one shows up. Although I do think it's a little neat that you can run into the second one much before the second phase is actually started, and you can start wailing on her before her actual health bar appears on the bottom. Aside from that, the fight is just long for the sake of being long and just time-consuming, and just like the Shadows of Yharnam, the music is nothing to write home about. Now, what I will say that is actually fun about this boss is that you notice that they summon these tall, dark figures with like the red aura surrounding them, and they can be somewhat of a challenge for you during the fight, but I feel like these things are blind. If you're more than 5 feet away from them, they can't see you. But where the fun actually comes in is that if you somehow die to this boss, then if you spend all of your insight before you actually come back, those summons just don't show up. And I don't know, I just thought that was, it's kind of funny. It just kind of makes this fight really needlessly easy. When it comes to the actual boss, her moves are really annoying. I hate so much the little white spell that locks you in place, and then, you know, she comes up to you and like digs a knife into your brain or whatever. It's so annoying. I hate anything that forces you to be locked in place. And my least favorite enemy in the entire game, the Brain Suckers, they do the exact same thing, and it's just not fun, you know? It's not fun. But it's easy. Other than that, they're not a boss that I actively roll my eyes at like the Shadows of Yharnam. I don't really feel like I'm going that out of my way to go fight them, especially since Hemwick Charnel Lane is an actual pretty enjoyable area. I might, maybe, do a separate video about ranking the areas in Bloodborne, but that's up to your guys' decision in the comments below. Please let me know if you want me to do that. I'll be happy to.
Stop. Not so fast, y'all. You think you can just up and run away? You crazy.
Once again, another boss that is just simply a mini-boss instead of an actual boss. The biggest positive I can probably give over these guys and the Witches of Hemwick or the Shadows of Yharnam is that I actually really like these guys. I don't think that they're very annoying whenever I encounter them in the overworld, and I think their designs are actually really goofy and funny. That being said, the first phase is and it's especially tediously annoying if you don't have a crowd control weapon. But I do like the idea of whenever phase 2 happens, it's just little guy, but much bigger for no reason. But, you know, he's kind of like a little guy, if I had to say. He's just a little guy, but large. But of course, the moveset isn't anything special at all. It's just wild swinging sometimes, and the second phase with the bigger guy, his wild swinging does shit loads of damage. Like, way more than I think he's ever actually supposed to. But I do think their arena is very gorgeous, and they are kind of a calm before the storm before you're going to fight Herbertitis. And overall, they're just a mid-boss. Not good, not horrible. They're just kind of there, and I'm happy that they are. And the award for probably the ugliest boss in all of From Software goes to this guy. Now, the actual mechanics of this fight isn't that intriguing, because I feel like most of the time his hitboxes are just hitboxes and you can't really like read what he's gonna do, because if you're going up to him, which there's not really any other choice, all of the random little legs on his body on the ground, they just kick and you can't really react to them. At least they don't do that much damage, so it's not too horrible. But phase 2 is what is really annoying, between puking all over the place or summoning balls of some kind of inexplicable black liquid that just tanks your health for like no reason. And of course being the boss at the end of Yahar'gul, which is a very mixed opinion area given its enemy variety. And of course the bell-ringing maidens on second floor that will consistently shoot fireballs at you if you don't deal with them. And the annoying part about that is that if you kill all of them, he goes into phase 2 immediately. And like I was saying, the One Reborn's second phase is pretty obnoxiously annoying. So usually what I do and what I did for this attempt is that I took out most of the bell-ringing maidens and left like 1 or 2, and he kind of felt handleable. I actually didn't hate going into this fight like I have been before. Now, I don't think it's a very good fight, or a fight I particularly think, ooh, I can't wait to go in and fight this guy. No, it's just, he's just a boss that I kinda brace for impact when I'm going in. And I will say this, even though he is the most egregious thing to look at in the entire game, probably out of any game I've ever played in my life, his design is very fitting for this game, considering it's supposed to be a huge mesh of horror, and especially in Yahar'gul, body horror, and overall his vibe matches the rest of this part of the game. Although he does struggle of being in the weaker half of the bosses, being in the second half of the base game, which definitely does have a weaker group of bosses.
How can a man that fat move fast?
Mikolash. Probably the boss everyone puts at the very last place in every single one of their rankings. Well, I'm happy to say I'm a bit of a contrarian. I like Mikolash. Obviously not that much, otherwise he'd be higher than 18th, but I've never really had that much of a problem with him. Now, maybe, yeah, his fight, whenever you're actually, confronting him, isn't that great, but running around just exploring his little arena isn't always too egregious for me. I think the fact that you can just go and find random little items and even a key in the second half of the fight to unlock an iron door in the first half of the fight is not bad. I don't hate going through. Now, again, like I said, the fight itself isn't anything too special. It is, after all, a From Software NPC fight where he just spams the same tentacle move or the call beyond with the explosion that can one-shot any unsuspecting player. It's not fantastic, but I still enjoy him. Now, of course, he does suffer from the whole mini-boss-itis thing that all the other ones have been suffering from, considering you're supposed to fight him only a few minutes before you actually fight Murgo's wet nurse. But I think him and his characteristics are actually pretty funny. I love his opening cutscene because it's so off and creepy. And I like his dialogue that he gives you whenever you're running around the boss arena, because I just think it's I just think it's kind of funny. He's just kind of a guy that's messing with you. Overall, I think Mikolash is overhated, but I still understand the disdain a lot of people feel for him. But I would invite him to my birthday party, even if he would always win at tag.
Everybody hurt You can't do nothing right, babe. I'm a loser.
The Living Failures is what Celestial Emissary wants to be. And, I mean, after all, I think lore-wise that is exactly what they are. Now, these guys have a very, how you say, controversial gimmick with them when it comes to their comparison to the Godskin duo in Elden Ring, because they have the shared health pool. And I don't like shared health pools. I don't think anybody does. I would have just rather it be 4 regular guys with a bit more of an expansive moveset instead of just killing the same 4 guys over and over and over again. Now, I don't mind that there's 2 predominantly melee ones and 2 predominantly magic using ones, because it means that at least 2 of them are always going to be on you, but the other 2 will always be out in the back just shooting at you, which can actually be a bit more handleable, not like the Shadows of Yharnam. Mainly because the magic using ones don't exactly spam you with their stupid projectiles every other second. That being said, I do think the melee ones, they hit like a truck. They hit so hard, and I understand that it's in the DLC, but like, damn, bro. But with all that being said, their arena is probably the prettiest in the game. I do think that the big flower in the middle is a little annoying to get around sometimes, but it does come in handy from whenever they're using their amazingly gorgeous meteor shower attack, because it can block some of the projectiles and you can just have a little bit of breathing room for a second, especially if they end up cornering you, which usually shouldn't happen. But I do like that their attacks are very well choreographed, and with the parrying system, it makes some of the melee ones kind of easier to fight, even if they can still whop your ass if you're not careful. Overall, they are just a better version of the Celestial Emissary, and I do think it's really funny that you go to fight them 5 feet, like literally, away from going into Lady Maria's room. So overall, I give the Living Failures a good thumbs up, and maybe, just maybe, a crisp high 5.
What?
Rom the Vacuous Spider. Probably a lot of people's stopping point if they have arachnophobia, because holy, that is a lot of spiders. Now, I don't have severe arachnophobia. I mean, if I see one in my bedroom, I'm going to freak out, but if I'm seeing one out on the sidewalk or in a video game, I can probably handle myself. However, when it comes to all of the spiders, they get really, really in the way sometimes. And while their number can be intimidating, at least not all of them attack you at the same time. They usually end up taking turns, which makes the amount of them a lot more handleable, and I don't mind it. Although that entire attack where they can jump up and mash you with their head is kind of dumb, because it can one-shot you for like no reason, especially if you don't see them jump up in the first place. That being said, when it comes to Rom herself, the first third of this fight, she literally has no attacks. It's kind of boring. Even whenever you get into the second and third parts of this fight, whenever she actually gets attacks, they aren't very interesting. She has one where she lifts her body up and throws some rocks at you from the sky, and you can pretty easily run away from them as long as you are, light on your feet. And then she has a few AoEs that she summons on top of herself if she wants a quick get off me type of attack, but they can be kind of tedious. But if your DPS is high enough, then this fight really shouldn't be that big of an issue. Now, what I think is pretty intriguing about this boss is that we really don't know that much lore about her. And now I'm trying to go off of these fights with just the actual fights themselves and try to stay away from the lore, but I do think it's pretty intriguing that a boss who is the trigger for going into the Blood Moon, the boss who started the whole gimmick with being on a endless water lake with the moon above you, has no lore, or at least not enough to really gain much insight on what she's about. It's kind of weird, but I don't know, she's she's just fine. Her arena is beautiful, like I said, and while I do think Renala's second phase with the moon and the lake is a lot prettier than this one started it, and I do respect her for that. She also gets a good point for having a very intriguing design, especially for a spider. Overall, I would give her 6 spider eggs out of 10. I don't know what that means, but do with that what you will.
Breaking news here in the Gulf, Tom. The dark ancient god Cthulhu has called for a press conference.
Ebrietis, Herbertibidus, Burbadibidis. I don't think anyone really has settled on a correct pronunciation of this boss's name, but Ebrietis, however you want to say it, is one of the most controversial bosses I could probably think of in this game, especially since her hitboxes are the most ridiculous in the game. And by ridiculous, I don't mean that they hurt you so much, even though some of them definitely do. I mean, sometimes I feel like she's not even attacking and I'm taking damage. And while, yes, in second phase, that's exactly what's happening with her little aura field around her, when I'm talking about her first phase, where she's swinging her arms around, or her tentacles around, or whatever, and I'm dodging through them, I will be getting hit by the tentacle that's like 5 feet away from me. Her hitboxes are weird, and that's really all you can really say. And yeah, like I said, her second phase with the close-up damage is really annoying, but at least it doesn't do that much damage. And, you know, of course there's her charge attack, which can knock you on your ass really, really bad. And of course, she also has a frenzy spewing attack. But that one, I've never really struggled with that much. So, onto the positives. She is probably one of the most intriguing and interesting designs in the game. I think she looks really beautiful. Because usually when I think of cosmic things, I don't exactly imagine cosmic horror, even though that's exactly what this game is about. And when I think cosmic horror, this is exactly what I picture. I picture something like Cthulhu, and that's pretty much exactly what she's based off of. Her music is really good. I love listening to it so much. I think the way you reach her behind not only a secret area, behind another mini-boss being the Celestial Emissary, behind a glass wall, and behind where you fight Vicar Amelia, I think it's so interesting that this boss is so hidden away from everything else. I think it's so cool. And what's even more interesting is that the first time you enter the arena, she's non-hostile. She just sits there looking at seemingly a dead corpse of Rom the Vacuous Spider. She's just sitting there. And even if you go in front of her and she looks at you, she doesn't do anything. She'll only ever attack if you attack her. Now, up until this playthrough, I've always summoned the summon outside of her boss room because I could not do this by myself. And finally, I was able to do that with this one. And I gotta say, I kind of like her. I don't think her fight is the best, considering her hitboxes like I've been saying, but I do think she's just a little bit overhated. But I will say, you should only be saving fighting her until much later on. Because if you fight her directly after you get the key to Upper Cathedral Ward, and right after you fight Celestial Emissary, it's seemingly impossible. At least for me it is. She's so difficult, and I don't get it. I don't understand why they would make something so hard so early. Well, that might be a little bit of a hot take, considering you can fight Dancer of the Boreal Valley really early on in Dark Souls 3, and I actually really like that fight. So, I don't know. Very divisive boss. Overall, 6 Cthulhu babies out of 10.
The terrible world war had ended and I was in a celebrating mood.
The war ended 2 years ago, creep.
Murgo's Wet Nurse. Now, I'll start this off by saying she has the weakest move pool in the entire game. She is not very intriguing to fight at all, considering she either has the move where she slices a bunch of times in front of her, or the one that she does the side swipe with her swords. It's just nothing she really has really feels that dangerous. And considering your options for your ending of the game, she does not feel like a worthy final boss option for this entire beautiful game. Now, what I can say is that she has one of my favorite designs in the game, which I've probably said a billion times, but what can I say? The boss designs in this game are really special to me. I think the fact that she has this crow raven aesthetic on top of being a nurse looks really pretty. And her boss arena is very intriguing with all of the corpses and the skulls in the middle. And of course, whenever you first enter, there's the cradle for Murgo. She has arguably the creepiest boss music in the game, probably in all of From Software, considering it's just the lullaby theme. She just in it of herself is very creepy to look at and very creepy to fight. And her second phase, whenever she goes dark and like summons the other clone, that can be a little hard, but you can dodge that attack that summons the darkness. And I think allowing you to dodge that attack kind of sours this fight just a little bit, considering it definitely makes the entire fight really easy. But what I do think is very cool, at least on the first time you fight her, is whenever you kill her, there's that long pause before he gives you the nightmare slain message. And while the first time can definitely send you into a little bit of a mini heart attack, every other time that you do it, it's not very fun to sit through and wait for the message to show up every single time. But I think overall this fight is just another very okay fight. Again, one of the many in the middle and late game Bloodborne that just kind of falls short, falls flat for many people. But overall, 6.5 baby carriages out of 10.
Hey, don't put me back on the ground, jackass!
Dark Beast Parl is another boss that you never really know when you're supposed to fight him. Considering if you fight him whenever you get kidnapped by the Snatchers and thrown into the unseen village and whatever, he's way too hard and has so much damage that it feels overwhelming. But if you come to fight him whenever you go into Unseen Village by yourself after you fight Rom, he's really easy and he's so little health. This is a boss that I feel like should have used some level scaling. It made it so that way you can properly fight it at either point in the game, or just make him have a middle road where if you fight him late, then he's a bit harder. If you fight him early, he's a little easier, if that makes sense. It makes sense to me, but regardless. His AoEs that he constantly uses with the lightning explosions are fucking annoying. And I really hate whenever bosses spam get off me attacks to make you run away in fear. Millennia waterfowl dance. Anyways, I do think that it's very interesting that he's the only boss that's predominantly electric based. And I do think that he is very intriguing to look at. I love the skeleton dog aesthetic that he has, although I just wish that his arena was a bit brighter, because I kind of want to just look at him more, considering he blends in with both the ground and the walls behind him. It's just, he's very cool, but I wish I could see him. And of course, if you decide to fight him later on and you go into the doorway behind him, into the old Yharnam, you can go up and talk to Jura and he'll be friendly, which I think is pretty neat. Overall, I just think this fight really needs some balancing work that he just doesn't have. But if he did, I would appreciate this boss a lot more. Overall, 7 electric dogs out of 10.
I'm sure it's not that noticeable.
Amygdala, probably the boss after the single worst area in the game, although I did say that exact same thing for the Shadows of Yharnam earlier on. But what can I say? I fucking hate the Shadows of Yharnam. Amygdala, though, I actually really like. Now, when it comes to actually attacking her, it's really only good if you're attacking her head, which takes massive damage, because if you're attacking her body and her legs, she takes like nothing. And considering she's constantly moving her head around, it can be definitely a little annoying to keep up with. That being said, I love that you can see others of her kind throughout the entirety of the game. Well, only if you have enough insight, that is. Considering there's one right outside of Upper Cathedral Ward, or all of the ones in Yahar Ghul, it's just so cool that you can actually fight one of them. And the fight isn't even that bad. I actually really like her movesets for the most part. Now, of course, she has the one where she jumps up in the air and you're supposed to guess whenever she lands back down, but other than that, most of her attacks are pretty handleable. And I think her design, like many of the kin-style bosses in the game, are so creepy and weird. And now when it comes to the whole cosmic horror design, Ebrietta's got the better half of it. Amygdala doesn't really falter on that end. And of course, when it comes to the second phase, she rips her arms off for extra range, like she doesn't already have enough as is. I just think the fight is really cool. And unfortunately, she's just located at the very end of John Poison Swamp number 6. Because of course we had to have another one of those. Overall, 7 brain tumors out of 10.
Yep, guess I'm Oogly-goo!
The Blood-Starved Beast. This boss was my first major obstacle the first time I played this game. I struggled for hours trying to kill this boss. And it was all because of the poison. The poison is really annoying, but I don't really hold that anger for it anymore. The poison can still be a little bit annoying, but I think as soon as I realized that you need pungent blood cocktails to power through phase 1, and then still be able to use it on the second phase, it made this boss a lot more handleable. And considering she's really weak to fire, it's a boss that I used to overhate, and now a boss that I can appreciate. Now, I will say though that sometimes that lunge attack that she has, she spams it way too much. At least she definitely did this time. And now that I've actually gotten a good look at her, she has very well choreographed moves that can be pretty easily learned. And I don't actually hate fighting. Something I do think that's very interesting is that you've noticed I've probably called her she many times, and that's because women who are affected by the Scourge of the Beast, they get their backs ripped off, and that's why her, like, back skin is, like, flapping all over the place. And of course, she's very pretty to look at. Like, I think she has a very interesting design. And the jump scare of her being in the DLC also is fucking scary. Like, it was not something I really wanted to see again, but I'm glad that she's in there anyways. Overall, 7.5 hungry dogs out of 10. Lawrence, the one boss that I really had to have grow on me. I think this boss is probably the one that does the most damage out of any boss in any one of his particular attacks. He hits harder than anything, and it's not even close. Even if you save him till the very end of the game, after you kill all the main game bosses aside from either Gehrman or Moon Presence, and even after you get all of the other ones in the DLC, he's so difficult. And whenever you get him to phase 2, the lava is really annoying. The lava that either trails behind him or the ones that he spews out, because it can cover up so much of the arena and completely corner you in some occasions. And of course there is the very, very popular complaint of the fact that he's literally just the cleric beast, but he's on fire. And I have to say, I somewhat agree with that. Now, of course, I don't like bosses that are just reused designs. Elden Ring is very, very guilty of that crime, but I don't mind it here, because it's very different enough for it to not be too much of a reused boss, especially since most of his attacks are very different and have much different animations to them, especially when it comes to Phase 2. I think mechanically he's a lot different than Cleric Beast, but even then he can be just a bit too difficult for me. What I do think is very cool is that aside from Lady Maria in her 3rd phase, this is the only boss that is predominantly fire-based. And I think he's very cool for that, considering a lot of the other beast-type bosses in the game are weak to fire. And, well, he very much isn't weak to fire. This time that I actually fought him is the first time I beat him on my first attempt, and I'm very proud of myself for being able to do that, considering this is one of the few bosses that I struggled on even after the first time I played through the entire game, and the DLC. Originally, though, he's not been my favorite. The first time I played the DLC, I hated him. The second time I played it, I still hated him. In fact, I hated him even more. But then the third time I played it, I caught a glimpse at the music that was being used, and I fell kind of in love. No, I don't love this boss, but I still very much appreciate him. Now, when it comes to music in games, I'm not a fan of boss music that's being reused over and over. And unfortunately, when it comes to Cleric Beast and Vicar Amelia, they use the exact same music. And I really, really wish Vicar Amelia had her own music. But when it comes to Lawrence, it's the same song, but they kind of remixed it and made it sound a lot more grandiose and very important. His music is beautiful, and I really like how they reused the music here. Or they rehashed it, I should say. Overall, Lawrence, the first Vicar, was a boss that I needed to grow on, and I'm happy that I did. And I will give him a solid 8 flaming dogs out of 10.
Piss on the earth. I'm gonna go higher. I'm pissing on the moon.
Moon Presence. Another boss people don't very much like, especially not for his whole final boss type of aesthetic. Now, some complaints I have for him are positives in their own light, for the fact that he has a small health pool and he doesn't do that much damage for the most part. But, lore-wise, it makes a lot of sense as to why it's like that. It's unbalanced because we, the player, have become Great Ones, and so fighting another Great One just becomes really easy for us. That really explains why the boss is really easy. But even then, I think the Moon Presence's design is so pretty. Like, I love the fact that Moon Presence looks like both cosmic and beast horror. A combination of both of the things that you fight throughout the entire game. The opening cutscene that plays whenever you first encounter her is really pretty. I think she just has hella aura and it goes so hard. I love this fight, even if it is still a little easy. And I don't mind that she's one of the potential final bosses, unlike how I felt with Murder's Wet Nurse. Do I think this boss is overhated? Yes. Do I think this boss needs to be at least a little bit harder? Also yes. I don't mind the boss being easy, but I do wish that she was just a bit harder. But even then, the boss that we were given is still absolutely peak. And I gotta say, I have to give her at least 8.5 moons out of 10.
So how do you even know where he is? How the hell are we gonna find him just driving down the middle of the road?
The Cleric Beast. The very first boss in the game that a lot of people fight. Not the first boss I ever fought. I actually missed Cleric Beast the first time and I went straight to Gascoigne. One of the issues with this boss, however, is an issue that FromSoft has always had with the larger scaled bosses, and that is the camera. I feel like you're fighting the camera way more than you're actually fighting the boss. And on top of that, the boss arena is very thin, so it really does not help the camera issue. And something mechanical I wish they did with the boss is that I wish Cleric Beast wasn't optional, considering that this boss is a great intro to the beast type of bosses, like with Vicar Amelia or with Lawrence, or with other types of beast enemies that you fight throughout the game. I think this boss just holds so much to it that this is one of the staples when it comes to Bloodborne. I think the fact that you can hear the boss screeching whenever you're climbing that initial ladder is very cool, and I love its design overall. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the reused design with Lawrence, and I have to say I prefer it here with Cleric Beast over Lawrence too. And whenever you enter the arena for the first time and you see him jump over the wall, it definitely gives you some chills. It definitely gave me some chills. I think this boss is, like I said, the perfect opening boss for the game, and I wish he was not optional. Overall, 8.5 beasts out of 10. Vicar Amelia. Now, this boss is also a great beast-style boss, and I'm happy that she isn't optional. I think her opening cutscene, where you actually get to see someone turn into a massive beast, is really cool. Especially since the fact you're just watching her do it through the shadows. It's so interesting. And whenever she actually turns around and you see her full design, she's really, really cool to look at. Now, I will say, like I said earlier, her reused boss music with the Cleric Beast is not very fun, and I really hate that she didn't get her own. And then on top of that, whenever you get into Phase 2, and I really do not like in Phase 2 whenever she can sit there and heal like half of her health back if you don't have Numbing Mist on you. Thankfully, if you know where to get Numbing Mist, this problem doesn't really bug you that much, or at least it shouldn't, because you can just throw it as soon as she gets to half health, and by the time she even tries to heal, she literally is not able to. So it just makes this fight a lot easier if you do. That being said, the fact that she can heal is kind of interesting, because it still shows a side of humanity that she still has even after turning into a monster. Her design, while being a giant wolf beast with the antlers and still wearing remnants of her dress, it just looks so cool. I love how Vicar Amelia looks. She's so pretty to look at. Her attacks are also very well choreographed, and even though they can hit like a truck sometimes, I love how they still, even with her praying action, they still look like she's attacking like how a human would. The boss is just a very well-paced fight. Overall, Vicar Amelia is just a very good early game boss, like a lot of early game bosses in Bloodborne. Overall, 9 whole werewolves out of 10.
You must bow to it. Crazy style.
Martyr Logarius was a boss that I was dreading wanting to fight the first time I played this game. Because, I'll be honest, I kind of looked up a tier list online to see what the hardest boss was and which one I should be looking out for, and every site was always saying Martyr Logarius is the hardest boss in the base game. I don't think that anymore. I actually think Ebrietas is the hardest boss in the base game. But that being said, Logarius can definitely be a challenge for new players, because the second phase attacks are what really mess with you, because he has the move where he slams the sword in the ground and it summons a ton of them that start flying at you, or all of the attacks where he jumps up into the sky and tries to attack you. Everything that is in second phase is really aggressive, and you just kind of feel cornered a lot of the time. But that's why I kind of like him a lot. Of course, he does struggle from having the worst run back in the game, considering you have to take mandatory damage. But even then, the fight is just really good. The music is very Bram Stoker's Dracula vibe, and the opening cutscene is arguably the coldest in the game, no pun intended. His design of being, again, the Bram Stoker's Dracula just looks so cool. I love how he looks, I love how the boss arena looks, I love how everything in this fight looks and feels. And if you end up getting lucky during the fight where he doesn't even use the flying sword attack like I did get here, then the fight gets a lot better. I love Martyr Ligarius, and I always loved going through the Castle Canehurst just to fight him. Overall, he is probably the rawest boss in the game, and overall, I'm gonna give him 9 Bram Strokulas out of 10.
Rachel, listen to me! Your husband is the butcher! Hoover is the butcher!
Father G, Father Gascoigne, the first mandatory boss in the game, and boy, what a fight. This is how NPC fights should function. Why did they not do this for every other fight in the game? Please, fix my boy Mikolash. He needs it. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is probably the best opening boss fight in any Soulsborne game. I think he fits the vibe of this entire game beautifully. I think everything that he does is so good. His music is one of the best in the game. He's a great intro fight to fighting other humanoid bosses or just regular NPCs either, because he has one of the hunter weapons. He has the hunter's axe. And if you chose that weapon at the beginning, then you already have some idea of how his moveset's going to be. And I love whenever you get into phase 2 and he turns into the beast right in front of you, and it's so aesthetically cool. I do have to say, before I forget, the only thing I hate about this fight is that this boss arena gets very cramped really fast. But throughout the course of the fight, a lot of the cramped spaces get destroyed and you get a lot more open area. But thankfully, because Gascoigne isn't that large of an opponent, the cramped spaces don't really become that much of an issue unless you corner yourself. Other than that, after you fight him, whenever you can get his drip, it goes so hard. He dresses like a fucking pimp and I love it. And on top of that, his opening cutscene where he's slowly losing his mind and he does that iconic turn and exhale towards the camera. It's so good. I love Father Gascoigne, and if someone doesn't love him, I raise an eyebrow because they must be high on something. And then of course there's the whole mini side quest where you find his daughter and she just wants to bring her dad back, but she doesn't know where her own mother went, and whenever you go into the arena you find her mother's dead body. It's so good. There's so much with this fight that just gives him so many points. And overall, 9.5 Father Gascoignes out of 10.
It's inside. What? It's a box of... A box of... That's ridiculous. You can't put in a box.
Lady Maria, the first boss that introduced the whole girl boss aesthetic, or at least the best one that's done it at least up to this point, considering both Sister Frida and Melania are just cheap copies of her. I'm joking. I very much like Sister Frida. Not Melania, though. Anyways, onto the actual fight at hand. Each phase is like watching a movie. It's so stellar and such a spectacle to look at whenever she floats up and stabs herself or explodes in blood and fire and whatever. She's just so cool, and her music is beautiful. I love her lore, the fact that she is what the doll in the Hunter's Dream is based off of. Everything she has is just so well written, and I love the fact that she's guarding the fishing hamlet into the Orphan of Cause. I think she has one of the best outfits that you can get in the game and just looks so good to wear. The cutscene that opens this boss fight it's not cool, but it's sleek and very simple, and I like it. And of course it has the iconic sound that whenever she separates her two swords, it makes that loud clanking sound, which I wish we could do, but we can't, but whatever. And I will say though, whenever I was fighting her this time, she didn't get into phase 3 until she was almost dead. I kind of bullied her this entire fight, and I feel bad, but at the same time, I don't, because this fight is very hard, and I have so much fun going into this fight because it feels like such a good breath of fresh air from all like the from all of the beasts and all of the kin style bosses and all of the large guys and whatever. She's just such a good fight. And I love Lady Maria. 10 out of 10 clanking sounds out of 10. Yeah.
Oh, call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!
Gehrman. What isn't there to say about Gehrman? He is the best final boss in this game.
Tonight, Gammon joins the hunt.
And I love the fact that he's just been a guy in the Hunter's Dream, just sitting there doing nothing throughout the entire game. And then you find out that he's the one behind, like, everything, the one that started the whole, like, Hunter's Dream and everything. He's so cool. I love his voice. I love his design. I love that opening cutscene where he gets up out of the chair. And of course, I love the fight. The music that plays is tragic. The fact that he's practically limping trying to fight you is just so depressing, but so cool at the same time. And he definitely fits the title of the first hunter. The only thing I dislike about this fight is that there's a few spots where you can just get stuck on smaller objects or different levels in the field. But even then, the battlefield is beautiful. The best looking in the game. His moveset is so well choreographed, and I love learning it every time I go in to fight him. And of course, whenever he looks up at the moon for Phase 2, it's just peak. It's absolute cinema. The best final boss in the game. Now, he's obviously not my favorite boss, but I still think he's perfect in every way that counts. I love his voice acting and just his everything. I feel like I can't glaze this boss enough without repeating the same things I've already been repeating. So I'm just gonna have to move on and say that this is 10 wheelchairs out of 10.
My name's Richard Grayson, but all the kids at the orphanage call me Dick.
Well, children can be cruel.
Yeah.
For Orphan of Cause, I'll just get my negatives out of the way and just say I really dislike that lightning bolt that he shoots down in Phase 2. Other than that, I think this entire fight is the best fight in the game. The first time I fought this boss, and also the third time I fought this boss, I beat him first try. I have no idea how, but I was able to, and I felt so cool. I felt so proud of myself for being able to beat what was considered the hardest boss in all of From Software. But when I'm talking about the boss in and of himself, his moveset is so well choreographed and everything just flows so nice. I feel like all of his moves make so much sense that none of his hitboxes are like haphazardly placed. His music is so just methodical and very beautiful, at least in the beginning before it starts picking up in pace in Phase 2. His arena is gorgeous, with the endless sea and the dead corpse of his mother, Cause. It's everything that resides in this boss fight is what I expect in a highly praised boss fight. I love Orphan of Cause so much. His design is great. His opening cutscene, whenever he's crawling out of his mother's corpse, is just really sad. And overall, this is the best possible fight that they could place at the end of the best possible DLC they've ever made. And I think every single piece of lore that resides with him and his mother and Gehrman are just absolutely beautiful. This is the most well-crafted boss that resides in the entirety of this game, and I give him 10 out of 10 Causes corpses. But there is of course just one last boss left.
Peter. The horse is here.
The very first boss in this DLC, Ludwig the Accursed. And aside from his charging attack that he has in the first phase, I think everything about this fight is so raw. It's so cool. He is the best possible intro for this DLC, and I kind of wish his second phase was just a little bit harder. And speaking of his second phase, he's the only boss in the game with a second phase cutscene. And like that's no joke. Every boss in the entire base game has no second phase cutscene. And out of the 5 in the DLC, he's the only one with one. And they couldn't have given it to a better boss, I have to say. The Holy Moonlight Sword being the sword of From Software, being given to this boss is so fucking cool. He's just raw. That's all I can really say. I think he looks sick. The fact that you can see parts of his outfit from whenever he was a human still haphazardly placed on him is just really interesting. And I think his design is the best in the game. If the One Reborn fits the aesthetic of the game for being just ugly horror, this guy fits the aesthetic of the game for being fucking awesome. His sound design is great. His music is a lot of people's favorite in the game. It's not my favorite, but that's only because I found a remixed version of it that I will leave in the description down below. And I think that the area that you go through, being the Hunter's Nightmare, it leads up so perfectly to getting into his boss arena, because it's the blood river that's flowing in there. And of course, Ludwig the Accursed, Ludwig the Holy Blade, is just absolute cinema. And my favorite boss, not just in this game, but in all of the Soulsborne games I have played so far. Until further notice, no other boss is going to be taking his place as the best boss in From Software. And with that, the end of this list has been concluded. I hope you guys enjoyed my opinions. A lot of them, I'm sure, are rehashed opinions by other YouTubers, but, you know, whatever. And if you guys like this, please remember to do the whole YouTube song and dance, which is, of course, to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't do any one of those, then I'm happy that you at least clicked on the video. And with that, have a good night, evening, or day, whatever time of the day it is for you. And goodbye.